And we're live, but I'm going to give it a couple seconds here. Hello, everybody. I'm Jeanette Pierce, and today we are discussing Detroit with the amazing April Anderson of Good Cakes and Bakes, one of my favorite people, running one of my favorite businesses in the city of Detroit. Welcome, April. Thanks so much for joining us today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm so excited to be here and talk about Detroit and Good Cakes and Bakes.
And it's so great to see your face, even
You
though
too,
it's
you
not
too.
in person. With our Detroit Experience Factory tours and City Institute learning journeys, we're at Good Cakes and the Bakes historically all the time, it seems like, because it's such a great small business in the city. And so when I was thinking about doing this new project of discussing Detroit on Facebook, I was like, we've got to talk to April because she's such a big part of all of our tours. And then, we've been doing these virtual tours, and we had our West Side tour just this past Friday. And I took folks over to the Ave and I showed them the outside and I said, hey, we're going to be talking to April. And also I told them about the median and how everyone hates, how you've never seen people hate a median so much.
Right.
But then the construction to get rid of the median. So anyway, it's been, we've been talking about you and now we get to talk with you. So
Yes.
I'm going to stop talking and actually let you give your, as always, I say, your 2-minute life story.
Okay. So hi, I'm April Anderson, and I am the co-owner and pastry chef here at Good Cakes and Bakes. We are an organic, all-natural bakery that's located on Avenue of Fashion, and we can call ourselves a community bakery because pre-COVID we had a large space for seating. People use our space to come in and host meetings. The community that lives over here, we use our space to host meetings with clients. We'll come up here and do homework or choose our space, bring their kids up here for our kids section. We've been here since 2013, and I've loved to bake since I was 9 years old. And then in 2010, I went back to school to get a degree in pastry arts. Pre that, I have an MBA in corporate accounting from the University of Michigan. I worked in finance for just under 17 years, and then decided that I wanted to change of pace and I wanted to do something that I love, which was baking. So I went back to school to get a degree in pastry arts. And in 2013, just 91 days after I went to Michelle and said I wanted to leave my job to open up a bakery, we opened up a bakery. And we've been here for...
So go ahead.
Oh, and so we've been here for, it'll be 7 years in September.
Time flies. I mean, I remember that. And your mom, your dad, your wife were all super excited to have you
Yes.
quit your job as an accountant.
Not at all.
Right?
No. My father thought I was crazy, and he made it a point to tell me every day through the whole summer when he was doing the build out that they would give me my job back. Michelle was worried because we were just over a year married, and I left my job with no, not really a plan. Just said, oh, I want to leave and open up a bakery. And we didn't talk about it for a couple of weeks. I said, hey, I gave my 2-week notice, just so you know, 2 weeks, I'm done here. And so it was a shocker because again, I'm born and raised in Detroit, and Detroit, we will be considered middle class. And for my parents, that meant that they send their kids to college, they get jobs, they work those jobs until they retire with a 401k, and leaving your job to open up, be entrepreneur was not something that was discussed. It wasn't something that I saw often. So it was scary. It was super scary for my parents, who all they want for you, right, is security. They want to make sure that you're secure, they will take care of yourself. And so leaving my job to open up a bakery was something that they didn't understand. But now if you ask my father, he would swear up and down that he knew it was going to be great. And he knew from the beginning. He forgets all about his talk about how go get your job back. None of that exists anymore.
Well, but it's important to realize that not everyone thinks entrepreneurship is the greatest thing since sliced bread, right? And for a long time, especially in Detroit, I mean, like for the reasons that you said, that it was almost like this 4-letter word, right?
Yeah,
Like
exactly.
like entrepreneurs were people who, it was almost like the English major who didn't were just saying that they were doing something,
exactly,
right?
yeah, exactly. That's exactly how it was. It was like these are the people who went to college and got a degree probably in something that that was not workable, and so now they're freelancing, right? But it wasn't something that you would definitely give up a job, security, making good money to start a business. That's not something. Being in Detroit, you really had like 3 to 4 options. Right, you either work for the big three, you worked for the city or the state, or you worked in healthcare. Those were the security jobs, and especially in Detroit, if you landed one of those jobs, you were. It made sense, and it was promoted that you worked that job until it was time to retire. I don't care how miserable you were, how unhappy you were as a job. You was getting a paycheck. Go to work, do your job, and in 30 years you retire.
Right. The whole live work balance of doing,
Yeah,
your passion, and, was not me a
no,
thing.
it was not. It was not a thing.
Well, and you said you didn't have a plan, but
No.
technically
So I
you
didn't.
had,
So I
or
had
when
plan,
did you
but
start to have a little a plan? So obviously you know where I'm going with this,
yes.
but
So I went to build, but I went to build because I wanted to be able to express what it was that I wanted to do. So I have an MBA, but when people ask me what do I want to do, it's like, oh, I want to open up a bakery. I want a bakery, right? But it was not really like what makes our bakery different, what makes us different than any other bakery. So going through build allowed me to hone in on exactly what our niche was, what made us different. But it also allowed me to write a business plan for a small business. And even though I had that, when I say I didn't have a plan, I mean like I didn't have no savings saved up for it. I didn't say, okay, so this is what we're gonna do. I'm gonna pay the bills for the first 6 months so that those are covered at home before I just decide to walk away from my job with no money. That's what I mean. I had planned. No, I went through Bill, which totally helped me develop our plan for how we were going to open, how we were going to grow, what that looked like. At what point do we decide on when we start bringing on employees? How many employees? All of that was like planned out from going to the Bill program. Yeah.
that's awesome. Well, and so for those that aren't familiar, Build Institute is an amazing nonprofit that is like a hub of all sorts of entrepreneurial resources. And its main program is this 8-week project planning, business planning class that was actually launched within a project partnering with us. We called D-Hive, and that was on Woodward back in 2012 in the space that I had opened as a welcome center back in 2008. And man, time flies, right? But that very first build class, oh, who knows? We'll see how this goes. Oh my gosh. And then the demand has been just overwhelming. And we had Christiane Sims Malone on a couple of weeks ago talking about all the build stuff. So if people are interested in that, they can just go down our City Institute page and watch the interview with Christiane. But it really is amazing. Over 2,000 graduates now through the builds.
So we're on. So right now we're doing 2 builds. So I'm a build facilitator now as well.
Yeah, which is so great.
So we're doing 2 virtual classes now. I teach one, and Yolanda teach the other one. But before that, we were on. I graduated from the 13. I was in 8. I was in the cohort 8, and now we're on 94. So that's a big growth, yes.
Well, and you say the 2 classes. You're talking about 2 classes that take place at Build or at Good Cakes and Bakes.
So
right?
So currently,
Well, not now.
before they did, I used to host the class
Yes.
but now the classes are online on Zoom. So we have 2 classes that way. But before that, you had an option of 4 or 5 different locations to take the build class. Yes.
And that was so great to have. And then when you're talking about not just a bakery, and when we talk about it on tours,
Right.
too, we want to stop at this place. It's so much more than a business. And yeah, the bakery stuff is really awesome, and we'll talk about that. But these community uses of the space, and also now even the pivoting to do it online. Like I think the last time we stopped there was in February, and Yolanda was actually subbing for a class that. And it was really, it was actually perfect to see the people, because, a lot of times with entrepreneurship, again, that word, Detroit has always had entrepreneurs, right? People have been, whether it's baking out of their home or the church, bazaar or whatever it might be, but didn't necessarily identify as entrepreneur, big word, right? Side hustles and maybe small business, you might say, or something. But so talk a little bit about just on the Build Institute side, how the 8-week class is different than like you said, getting an MBA and then the people that are attending these classes.
So definitely the people who attend the class are definitely Detroiters who want to start a business, but they will also want to figure out how do I take it from being just a hobby? Because a lot of them have been doing what they're doing for 10, 15 years.
Right,
But
right.
it was
It's
like,
not just a new
yeah,
thing.
it's not a new thing. It's something they've been doing. But now they want to figure out, like, how do I take this from being a hobby to actually a business that's scalable, right? And so most of them are coming in, that's what they're coming for, is because I want to make sure that I got my pricing right. I want to make sure that I have all the information that I need correct in order to take my business from being just something that's probably I do for my house. I might want a space now. I might want to actually have a brick and mortar. What does that look like? How do I figure out how much money I need to open my business? And those are the type of questions that we answer and build. Like, how do you scale your business? At what at what point do you scale it? When do you bring on employees? Do your business need to be actually a brick and mortar? As well as how much money do you need to be able to stay open every month? Because a lot of people don't realize is that what closes the business isn't, oh, you don't have a good product or nothing. It's because you don't know you haven't figured out what your cash flow is. You don't have enough money to cover your bills and pay your bills to stay open. And so we help people figure that out in the build class. So in that 8 weeks, you're learning how to write your business plan. And you might not walk out, you might not finish in the 8 weeks with your business plan, but you will have the foundation and the fundamentals to do it later. So I always try to tell people that it works out better for you if you are doing, when we leave the class, when you're done with the class, you are taking the information that we talked about in class and actually inputting it into your business plan the way that it fits for you. And if you do that each week, then by the end of the 8 weeks, you will have a good functional business plan.
Well, and I love that too. Some people, like when we've talked about this in the past, that some people aren't going to open a business, and that's considered a success too, right? So April Boyle, obviously the executive director, talks a lot about this, but that realizing that, wow, I don't have the money, the time, this isn't going to be as easy as I thought it was. And so then people aren't investing all this time and energy and then getting burnt out,
exactly.
Against all business concepts, you know?
So when you look at it like that, you have to think that's a success too, right? To at least the person was able to go through the class and figure out that the idea that they currently have at this moment isn't something that's scalable or able to make a living from. And so maybe they just need to be able to take that time once the class is over with and just I guess the big word right now is pivot, right? Pivot their business ideal to make it something that is a lot more sustainable than what it was when they came into the class. And we've had people in class,
No, go ahead.
We have people in class actually who have come into the program as a single person, the single business owner. And in the class, they have met someone else and have ended up collaborating. Look at folk. You have Kiki and Rahani, who both met in build class and both had different ideals and came together. And now they have 3 different businesses together.
So amazing. Yeah, the collaboration part is a really big part in the team building that happens in the workplace. And then sometimes people are hugely successful, like you, Miss April Anderson. So some of the things let's talk about some of your awesome stuff, right? So we are going to show some pictures here. And these are some of her cupcakes. So Good Cakes and Bakes. I see my favorite one back here in the corner.
Pudding, yes.
That's the, I'm going to do a little just big picture here of the different types of cupcakes. And yeah, this banana pudding one here is in the back is definitely a favorite. And then also, can you tell people about this, which I absolutely love learning about in your shop? And then also, now I'm addicted to the gooey butter cake. Talk to us a little about that.
So the gooey butter cake is something, it's really a St. Louis staple item. And we saw it on television, and me, Michelle, and my niece drove to St. Louis so we could try it. We tried it, we loved it. And I came back, and it took me literally 2 years to figure out how to make it from scratch. Every weekend, I would go to the store, get the ingredients, and try and make it. I ended up downloading we saw it on television, so I downloaded the episode, and I kept like rewinding it, pause, like, okay, that looked like a tablespoon of baking soda. It looked like 2 cups of flour. I kept trying and finally got it. And then when I finally figured it out, Michelle didn't think that it was going to be popular. She's like, oh, it's too sweet. People aren't going to like that. You really shouldn't make it. And so I made a small one at one of the farmers markets that we did. And people loved it. we opened at 9:30. By 11 o'clock, I was calling her, telling her it was all gone. And people literally follow us around looking for. We've made it for Oprah Winfrey. We made it for former President Bill Clinton. We ship it out all the time to people. People really love that.
And it's a little bit more shelf stable too, right?
Yes,
That helps if you
exactly.
want.
Yep.
So shipping, guys, we'll talk a little bit about call to action at the end. But if you're sitting here going, I want this right now,
Yeah.
there you can do carry out and things like that, but also ship around the
Yep,
country.
it sure can.
And so you just mentioned that little thing about Bill Clinton in there. So can you tell us a little bit about that story? Because I think it is absolutely hilarious and
Yeah,
awesome.
yeah. So in 2015, I got an email asking me to speak on a panel. And I was like, who's on the panel? What is it about? At this point, I had spoken on maybe like 2 or 3 panels. So they were like, yeah, it'll be the mayor of Detroit, Mike Duggan. It'll be the president of the Kresge Foundation, Rick Ramson, and Bill Clinton. I'm like, what? So I was like, can you call me? Because I was just want to make sure you got the right person. So they called and said, oh, yeah, April Anderson, right? I was like, yeah. So how did you hear? They said that when we asked the mayor as well as Rick Ramsey, if we could bring one person from Detroit, entrepreneur that's doing things right, who would you want us to bring? And they both said Good Cakes and Bakes. And so then they was like, oh, we're going to fly you to Denver. I was like, oh, okay. So it was for the CGI global conference. And they were like, oh, and could you bring some treats? Maybe 400 of the Gooey butter cake that we saw that you gave to Oprah Winfrey, and 400 brownies because Bill Clinton's vegan brownies because Bill Clinton's vegan. I was like, sure. So the day before I was scheduled to leave, they called and said, oh, we need to double that. So we need 800 and 800. And I was like, oh my God, how am I going to make that? Again, one day. And at the time, it was just me. I was the only baker. I was like, how am I going to bake all this today? And how am I going to get it on the doggone plane? And so Michelle, being her social worker herself, was like, oh, we can just put it in shipping boxes. So we went and we got boxes and we went to make it. And I'm baking the gooey butter cake and Michelle's wrapping it, saran wrapping it in parchment paper. And I look over there and it's like these little bricks. And literally, I never in real life seen, but I was like, oh my God, this looks like cocaine. You're going to get me arrested.
Is it like Beverly Hills Cop or something?
Yes,
Yeah.
I was like, oh my God, you're definitely going to get me arrested. So on each one of those gooey butter cakes, we typed up a letter. It was like, this is just food. It's for President Bill Clinton. Please do not destroy. Call my cell phone if you have any questions. Each box was like 52 pounds each. And they didn't open the boxes. They didn't check anything. I could have got anything through TSA. Just saying. It got there. They loved it. And Bill Clinton loved the brownies. We have shipped them to him. Chelsea Clinton has ordered them for his birthday. Hillary has ordered it for Father's Day. His assistant has ordered it just because when he was here in 2018 for Aretha Franklin's funeral, I got a call the night before, maybe like around 10 o'clock at night, and was like, oh, Mr. Clinton would like to know if he could stop by the bakery in the morning and get some brownies. So they stopped by like around 6:30 in the morning to pick up brownies before he went over to the church.
He came with that time?
Yeah, he came. Mm-hmm. It was him.
Because he'd gotten so many of the brownies, he probably wanted to see.
Right, he had never been to the bakery. Right. And the one time that he was here, when he was campaigning for Hillary's thing, we wasn't open, so he couldn't come to the bakery that day. And so he was like, he wanted to come. So him and his assistant Lauren came over to the bakery to pick up the brownies before they went to the funeral.
So they have your cell phone number now, obviously.
Yeah,
so
Lauren, she called. She's like, hey, can we get some brownies in the morning? But people, so that was like such a wonderful experience to be able to do that. And I think that was the first time that I had spoken in front of so many people. It was like maybe like about 4,500 people there.
Wow. That's so great. Well, and Oprah also he threw in there. And I love that you weren't a big Oprah fan until this.
No, exactly. I really wasn't an Oprah fan. I didn't understand why people, would be like, oh, what Oprah says is gold. What Oprah says is gold. Until I was there, and it was like literally like, oh my God, I felt like I could walk out and do anything after hearing her speak. And so we got to make gooey butter cake for her. And they came to the kitchen because at that time I was baking out of a commercial kitchen. So they came to the commercial kitchen to film us recording. Then they came over to the bakery. And then when she came in town she was doing a tour, Live the Life You Want. We got to go and take the goods to her and go to the conference, which was a wonderful total experience.
Now, one of the most amazing things is, I mean, you've got to be one of the, if not the hardest worker in Detroit, uh, the hardest working woman. So you kind of glossed over. I remember when you said that, oh yeah, the people wanted to come and shoot you making the stuff for Oprah.
Yeah.
But what time was that at again?
Oh
And
yeah, so they was like, "Oh, can we come meet you? We'll meet you at the kitchen so we can record." I was like, "Oh, great! I'll get to work at 3 o'clock in the morning." It's like, "Oh, wait a minute. So is it possible that we can come and set up the camera the night before, and then we'll just come?" They got there about 6:30, but they were like, "No, we won't be there at 3 o'clock in the morning. No." So
right,
yeah,
most people, I mean, I'm sure maybe bakers and donut makers, right? If those commercials from back in the day.
right, yeah, gotta make the donut.
But so then that kind of leads to like, so tell us about how you ended up getting the space
Yeah.
and
Mhm.
that timeline and how you weren't baking there at first.
Yeah. So we right before I was about to be done with school, there was this new program called Revolve Detroit. Michael Forsythe was in charge. They were doing pop-ups. And at the time, they were doing a pop-up currently in the location in where I live at, which is in West Village. And so I was like, what is this pop-up? And the people's like, you got to talk to Michael Forsythe. You got it. And so I was like, who the heck is Michael Forsythe? So I started Googling and Facebook, and I found out he was doing a workshop. It was on Valentine's Day and at the Vanguard. And so I told my boss at work, I was like, I need that day off. Do you want me to call in, or are you just going to give me the day off? Because I'm going to this thing. I need to meet this man. See you later. And so he was like, you can take the day off. So I went over there and I stood in line to talk to him. And I explained to him that, I really like to get more information about doing a pop-up. And he was like, well, just so you know, I got this grant money coming in May to the Avenue of Fashion. And in May, if you're interested in doing a pop-up, send me an email and I'll let you do a pop-up over there. So up until that point, I had never sold to anyone. I've only baked for friends and family. And, they'll eat it and they'll be like, oh, it's so good. And then they'll go home like, what the hell did you give me? So they won't tell you if it's good. So this is going to be the first time. So May, of course, I reached out to him and let him know that I was still interested in doing one. And so he was like, sure, you can do it the weekend of the announcement, which was the last weekend of May. And so my last day of work was on May 29th. And that was actually the first day. That was the day of the pop-up, was at Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so we did the pop-up and people was loving everything. They said, oh, you should open up a bakery. You should open up over here. And so Michael Forsythe gave out the RFP and he was like, oh, you should apply. And I was like, nope. Even though I wanted to open up a bakery, still feel like I wanted the whole year off work. So I left my job.
Wanted to plan and get things, have time to put
I really wanted to just go sit at Paneras every day and just be on the internet looking at food blogs. But I figured it was going to be a whole year for that. Well, he gave us the proposal, and I was like, nope, I don't want to apply. Michelle kept looking at us like, oh, you should apply. This is money. You should apply. You should apply, right? And so it was due on July 5th at 5 p.m. I kept reading, and I kept saying no because I'm not ready for it. And then I read on there that it said that even if you don't win, you're still eligible for free technical assistance. So I was like, okay, maybe we should apply, but not to win, to be able to utilize them in a year when I was ready to open. Right. So at 4:55 on July 5th, we filled it out. Again, not to win, just to be to the point where we could utilize them in a year. Well, we won. And we had...
Congratulations.
That's right. And we had 6 weeks to open. We had 6 weeks to turn this from just a bare retail space to a bakery. And that included, we had to, because of the size of the space, we had to put another bathroom.
Can you show us a little? Are you there?
Yeah. I'm here.
Give us a little tour.
Yeah. So we had to, so I'll turn it around. So it's kind of looking different than when you hear Jeanette, and it's because of the way we have set up for COVID.
Yeah.
So you can't come in. So now everything is over here. So we do everything on the other side of the counter. But because of the size of the space, we had to put this bathroom in. We had to do plumbing, and that we did everything backwards. So we literally, only thing we did right was go through plumbing because we couldn't, once we dug up the floor, we couldn't close it up without getting permits. But everything else we did, we was like, oh, we'll do it afterwards because we had to be open before for Detroit Design Festival. So we opened up on September 20th. And then on September 25th, I went down to the City County building to BC. And I said, hey, I opened up a bakery last week. What do I need to do? So it took longer for us to get licensed in here only because we did everything so backwards. So for 15 months, we literally baked out of a kitchen, part of Detroit Kitchen Connect. We went there every morning at 3 o'clock in the morning. I baked from 3 a.m. until 7 a.m. And I was here from 7:30 until 8 o'clock. And so for those 15 months, it was just me and my mother working. So I baked, and then she worked here at the bakery. And we did that. And then in January of 2015 is when we was able to start baking here.
Wow. Yeah. I mean, and that's not just like a month or like that's 15 months, man. I mean, I have, that's a long time. I have
almost 15 months of babies, right?
And wow, that is definitely a long time. Well, and Detroit Kitchen Connect is such a great, program. That idea that, people didn't have commercial kitchens that wanted to get, they were growing out of their homes, but didn't have a commercial kitchen. And then being able to have underutilized commercial kitchens throughout the city. And you were in Southwest Detroit?
I was in Southwest at the St. Peter and Paul Church, which a lot of churches in the city of Detroit are licensed through the state as a commercial kitchen because they do, like, they'll do dinners and things like that, but otherwise they're not using them. Yeah. So Detroit Kitchen Connect was a way, before we had Shed 5, was a way for Eastern Market and Food Lab to offer grants to these spaces of churches to utilize.
I mean, the name says it right there, Detroit Kitchen Connect. And Davina Davidson, who also had gone through the build class and stuff. And, it's that innovation, that like problem solving. Let's see if we can connect these dots. And I think
exactly. And that really like was the catalyst to get so many small food businesses going that was underground before, to bring them above ground and get them all legalized and able to do their things, which allowed them not only to sell to their community, but also allow a lot of them to get into like Whole Foods, Myers, Holiday Market. A lot of the artisans that's in these markets right now are baking out of Detroit Kitchen Connect, are making their way out of there.
And you mentioned Shed 5 because that was the plan, was to have Shed 5 have a commercial kitchen people could rent by the hour or whatever. And that is now there, and it's amazing. But like you said, there was a gap before.
Yeah, it was a gap.
Food was recognized, but before there was something built just for that.
Yeah, right? Just for that purpose, right. And in the meantime, that's where these different kitchens came up. And the one in Southwest Detroit, we kind of called that the Baker's Kitchen because it was open 24 hours a day, which bakers need. And so it was all bakers over there. It was 14 different bakers to utilize that space in a month time at different hours.
Well, and there's so much in Southwest. We actually are doing a Southwest virtual tour coming up on Friday, and we're going to talk to Gabriela Santiago Romero about Southwest stuff. So a little bit going to Southwest. 3 o'clock. So we have a few minutes left. So I want you to be able to talk about the changes, like how have you updated? How has COVID crisis, affected you in the business? And then on what can people do to help, or what's your call to action?
Yeah. So since COVID has happened, we have pivoted to become only online and pickup. So you can place your order online for pickup or delivery, or you can come to the bakery, but you can't come in. You can call us when you get here, place your order, and we will set it out. We have a table outside.
Can we get this cake right now?
Yeah, you can get the cake
right now. Tell me a little bit about this cake from that's pretty famous now.
Yeah, so last year, for Mother's Day, me and my mother got to go to New York and be on the Today Show and make this cake, which is our lemon velvet cake. And that cake, we were making that cake for maybe like 6 months before we went on Today Show. And we might go through 2 cakes a week of that cake. From the day we was on the Today Show, we started going through 4 and 5 cakes a day of that cake. And it's still, to this day, it's still popular. For Mother's Day, we made so many of those. We still ship them. We ship them everywhere. When we came back from New York, we came back with over 600 orders, all to be shipped all over the country of that cake. Thus far, we shipped everywhere except for South Dakota. I don't know why. South Dakota
somebody watching out there. Right, you have family in South Dakota. Send them a cake.
Yes, please.
Send them something.
Right. Something, right. So we offer, and before that we didn't offer shipping. So we had to learn how to ship, because that's not what we were supposed to make when we went online. When we went on the show, that's not what we were supposed to do. They waited a week before they changed it. And we thought about it. It was like, oh man, if that's what we're going to be making, that's what people are going to want. So we literally had to come home and learn how to ship a whole ice and cake and let it get to you and still look nice and pretty, which was
you've been pivoting. I mean, entrepreneurship is all about pivoting all the time. I mean, now it's the buzzword, right? Pivot, but you've just been continuing, and those previous pivots have gotten, have kind of set you up a little bit more now for
what's going on right now
during this time.
Yeah, because when we went on there, we had to learn how to ship. Because we spent so much time and money getting the right shipping products and supplies, that we started putting a lot of focus on marketing for shipping and delivery. And so now with this happening right now, it's like this is our main source of income is our online ordering. And so what has changed is that people aren't allowed in the bakery anymore. So you have to place your order and pick it up on outside the bakery. We do a lot more deliveries, contactless delivery, so people can order online and we will deliver it to you, or we will ship it to you, whichever you want. So we've done a lot of that. We've done a lot more. So even though we were a very clean bakery and we have the Orchid, they come and they say we are literally the cleanest bakery that they've seen. They don't, like a lot of bakeries have like those fruit flies and stuff, and we don't have any of that type of stuff here. And so even though we've always been clean, we have stepped it up and we pay a lot more attention to making sure that we're like heavily touched items are being disinfected, making sure that our team is wiping down the counters, sanitizing, gloves, masks, all of those things. And so we are preparing for when this is when the restrictions are lifted and we're able to open back up. How do we want that to look? Because we do have a large seating space in here, right? And we know that we're not going to be able to have people in here seating like we used to. So how do we still make this space feel welcoming? And so what we plan to do is actually reconfigure the bakery. So, and it helps us out too, because by reconfiguring the bakery, it allows us to reconfigure and we have more baking space, which is the whole reason why we have the second location, was because we wanted more baking space, right? Well, now we're going to be able to pivot this space in here and make it so that we're able to do that here in the bakery, but still give customers a good experience when they do come into the bakery.
That's awesome. Well, and it's just been amazing to see. We have such a strong entrepreneurial ecosystem here. So, and you've been able to, and work with many different, so Build Institute and then Revolve Detroit, which became Motor City Match, which we should mention, right? So, and for those that aren't aware, I mean, and like any project, new thing, it's got, it's had bumps and things like that along the way, but giving $500,000 cash to small businesses and then a whole slew of other services, come to that and other cities are looking to model after that. Actually, we're in Forsyth before all this happened in Eastern Market, and we're both working with Akron right now to helping them create before this create tours, and they're talking about doing some Motor City Match, Rubber City Match, whatever it might be there, which I think is really cool. That it's all about sharing lessons learned, right? And so what we City Institute, that's the whole point of this, is that Detroit has a lot to share with the world, has a lot of
exactly.
And so before we wrap up, I want to see what lessons, what advice would you have for a small business owner that's trying to figure things out now, or that might want to start something? Any big takeaways from either recently or just your, the last 7 years?
Yeah. So one thing I would definitely tell is don't be committed and married to a certain ideal, because this could have really hurt us if we wasn't open to and flexible to change. If your business model was I want people to be able to come into your space, then you don't know, then you're like resistant to change, which could really collapse your business. So being able to be flexible and change, but also making sure, even before this happened, I've always focused on making sure that we had a good online presence. Having a good online presence, because right now, during this time, people are at home, they're online, they're shopping online, right? They can't go out and shop. And so if you before this happened, developed a good online market where that means you still able to make money during this time. And if you didn't, during this time is definitely the time when you would want to focus on getting a website up, e-commerce store, and there are so many programs. TechTown has a program. They're working with Rebrand where they're doing free websites for people, helping people set up their e-commerce. So it's so much resource in the city of Detroit going on right now that people really should be taking advantage of these great opportunities. A lot of stuff that usually costs money is being given away for free right now to help businesses be able to pivot and be able to still be sustainable. It's so many programs right now trying to make sure that when this is all over with, their Detroit businesses are not just shut or closed, that they are able to still be able to be open and be sustainable.
Well, I think, and the city just launched that Detroit Means Business. So it's just DetroitMeansBusiness.com that has a lot of that information. Again, there's so many resources, and that's why on our tours, we don't just focus on, it's not about tourism, it's about educating and connecting locals to what's going on. And that includes the resources that are available. It's always great to have more resources, but if people don't know about the existing ones, then that's easier to actually like inform people about what exists versus having to create something from scratch.
And I know that, so I have friends who have businesses other places, and the things that Detroit is doing, people are just like in awe. Like right now, the Detroit Means Business is giving free PPE to small businesses so that when they do open, they're ready. Like I have an appointment today at 3:30 to pick up masks, gloves, all for not only for customers, but also for employees. And a lot of states aren't doing that. I have a friend who has a bakery in Georgia, Savannah, and they're not getting any of this type of assistance that we're getting here. We were able to allow all of our team members to go get free testing, COVID testing from the city of Detroit, stuff like that. Other places aren't offering. So the things that are that's happening in Detroit, it's not happening in other places, and people really should be taking advantage of these things right now while they're here.
Absolutely. And the last thing I forgot to mention, or have you meant, but because you've always taken really good care of your team, which is a really big part of all of this, right? Like I know you mentioned you got the PPP, which is great, but talk just really briefly, because I that's the thing. I'm like, oh, I'm gonna have these short conversations. Maybe that was a silly concept to think of, but just really briefly on how historically you've always wanted to have take good care of your folks, and now how that's continuing.
Yeah. So before this happened, when we opened, part of our business model was to make sure we was able to pay a living wage. So we started our employees with $15 an hour and our bakers with $18 an hour. And most of our bakers are bakers who are re-entering citizens. So they're just coming home from prison with no background in baking. So not only do you learn a hard skill, but you're also making a great wage to do that. So we pay that. And then even through COVID, we had to shut down some and like lessen our days, we still was paying our staff who wasn't able, because we have 7 employees, but we didn't need 7 employees every day like we would need before. We still were paying our staff half of their pay. And that was before PPE, right? Before PPE, we were still figuring out a way to pay our staff 50% of their wages. And now because we have the PPE, we're able to give our staff the full 100% of their staff their pay, as well as it allows us to use our revenue to save our revenue, because we have the PPE paying our staff, which is one of our biggest costs is labor. So being able to pay them and still be able to save money to give us a cushion, so that even when this is done, if sales don't pick up immediately, we still have a cushion to be able to take care of our staff.
That's awesome. Okay, so I put your website here on the bottom, goodcakesandbakes.com. Go online. That's the best way. Calling, if you don't have a website, certainly I'm sure people can call, but it's much easier. Go online, order, and they can come and pick it up curbside.
Yeah, you have curbside pickup, you can have delivery.
And the cutest little delivery van too. Like it's all
exactly right. Yeah. So you can come in. You can come to the bakery if you want to come and place your order, and we'll just set it out for you. You just can't come inside the bakery.
Yeah. And that's a great way, to support local and get some really great. I know everyone's liking baking at home, but trust me, baking like April is baking at home. Or if you are, maybe you can get a job after all this.
There you go, because we definitely do that. Yeah.
Well, I know we could go on forever, and I can't wait till we can come back and see each other in person and be in the space. But thank you so much, and thank you
for having me on.
for everything you do for Detroit and your team and other small business folks. It's really, you're an amazing role model for this awesome city.
You too.
Awesome person for an awesome city.
Thank you.
Awesome. All right. Thanks so much, April. We'll talk to you soon. Have a great
Okay,
day.
you too.
Bye.